Hi, my name is Robert. This video is designed to give you step-by-step detailed instructions on completing the task at hand. Please read the comments in the About section of this video. It has valuable information and updates. My YouTube channel has a disclaimer video that I encourage you to watch. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you found what you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. Hey, thanks for watching the video. I trust that you will find it helpful in doing the cylinder head on the car that you're about to work on. I just made it a one video. I believe it's pretty complete. It should help you get through this job without messing anything up. Of course, you'll be pulling the cylinder head for a couple of different reasons. One, somebody overheated the car and now the head gasket's blown. Two, burn a valve. Three, somebody ran the AC compressor into a curb stop or something. It threw the serpentine belt, locked up the timing, and destroyed the cylinder head that way. At any rate, here you are. I trust the video is pretty complete, help you get through it. These cylinder heads are what they call P1 platform Volvos, S40s after 2004 and newer, up maybe till, I don't know, 2011 or something. The C30s, the Volvo V50s, couple of the other C70 Volvos, and the Ford Focus. The situation that you want to avoid is if you're pulling the head and having the head reworked, do not mix the lifters up in the head. These lifters are solid. They are adjusted to each position that they're at. So when you pull a cylinder head, don't let those get mixed up. Do not send this cylinder head out to be reworked by a company that is not familiar with doing these. They will mess up the valve job and you won't get the car started. I had to do the job twice because we ordered a cylinder head from a company in Florida that specializes in cylinder heads. We gave them the VIN, told them what kind of car. They sent us the wrong head. I believe they sent us a head that belonged to a Ford, which had an extra oil port, couple other minor differences, and we put the head on, fired the car up, it's squirting oil everywhere. Timing was off a little bit, so I had to redo it, get another head from them. Not fun the second time. So I got a lot of time into making this video, a lot of time into doing the job for this guy that needed it, and like I said, it should be complete. Watch the video through and through as best you can. It'll guide you through the job. If you have any questions, you can go to my website and contact me via the phone number on the website. If I'm not busy, I answer the phone. The video should have everything in there that you need to get through there. But anyway, that's where my phone number is on my website. Link in the comment section. Also, if you want to show your appreciation for the 20 or 30 hours I put into making this video, you can go to my website, send a donation. The last page in my website has a link to my PayPal. Send a donation, mail it in, whatever. That's up to you. It's not required. But if that's the way you want to show your appreciation, that's what you could do. If the vehicle you have had a broken timing belt, there's no reason to try to set the timing before you pull the cylinder head off. Once you get the cylinder head off, you can set the crank timing. I'll show you in the video. Then you can hook up the cam locking tools to on the back of the cams, and then you go ahead and install it from there. There's no reason to try to put cam locking tools on when you're removing the head, especially if it threw the timing. If you look in the comment section of the video, you'll find other videos linked that will help you understand why I do what I do and guide you through different aspects of the cylinder head job so that you don't have to do this thing twice. Here I am, round 2 on the C30 cylinder head job. We had a massive fail on round 1. Actually was shipped the wrong cylinder head. Didn't know it till it was all buttoned up. Fired it up, started squirting oil everywhere. So we got another cylinder head that we believe is the one, hopefully, that came off of the car. We're going to take this cylinder head off, put that one on. Hopefully it'll be a 2-day job this time. Let's get started. The tool list that you see is pretty complete. it is missing just a couple of tools. Number one, you need a angle torque gauge to do the final torque on the cylinder head bolts. Number two, I had a little 1/4 inch universal you'll see in the video that I used to reach a few bolts. Number three, I use a 4-foot gas line pipe as a cheater to break the head bolts loose and to torque them. So you want to use get those extra tools. First thing you want to do, disconnect the battery negative, break the lug nuts loose, jack the car up, put a jack stand under there, and pick up from there. Next thing we're going to do is take this skid plate off. Look like we got some T30s going around there. 3 across the front, another one there, maybe a couple across the back. I'll let you know how many. Drop the coolant in that pan, and you have a hole there in the petcock there. You turn that with your hand or with a stubby flat tip. So you got the coolant draining. Go ahead and open up the reservoir cap to let it flow. While that's draining, we're going to go ahead and take off the timing belt cover. Move the oil cap thing there. We got T30s across there and here, and that'll let this timing cover off the top here. I'm going to lift this bottle up and out of the way, see if there's something holding this front cover on over here. It may just be clipped. Let me see. Pull that top cover off. Then this cover just kind of works up and out. It has little guides in it, but it doesn't have any hardware securing it. Now we're going to take a T25 out there, T25 out here. Take a couple of these loose maybe, and take that 10 off there. Just easier to take the whole skirt out. A 10 there, 10 there. The rest of them are T25s. Pull it out. Had a bunch of dirt, leaves and stuff up there. So now, this thing has a different serpentine belt arrangements than some cars, but it's got a belt that turns the AC compressor. Then it's got a belt from the AC compressor to the alternator. So the crank is turning the AC compressor, and the AC compressor turning the alternator. That kind of sucks. You can never bypass the AC. Anyway, I'm going to lift the tension off of this and slide this belt off of the AC compressor. You got a T50 in there. You turn it clockwise, it takes the tension off, knock the belt off. Now that your belt's off, and you can do this with that belt on, decide if you're going to knock this harmonic balancer off. If you'll knock that off, do it while that belt's on. It helps put a little stress on it, come off easier. If not, this is where you take that thing off under the belt and give you access to the timing belt installed that way. But really, you might try to take this off, give you some more space to work. Got the pulley off. Next, I'm going to get the timing belt cover off, the lower timing belt cover. Next, we're going to support the engine and take a little bit of pressure off the engine. That's how I have the engine supported under the oil pan. Scissor jack, I got it up about a 1/2 inch. Take this bracket off the engine. I think that's a 15 or 16 there. Take that there. That'll take this hold down off. Then I got 15 there, 15 there. 15s or 14s. I'm pretty sure they're 15. Got that crossover support loose. You want to look at your mount. Make sure you don't see no cracks in it. Starting to crack just a little bit. Probably be replaced. Couple years. Another 25,000 miles. Pull these bolts out. Then lift this mount up and out. Jack the engine up a little bit and pull that, look like a T30 out of there to get that lower cover off. After you get that screw out there, T30, the side has little latches on it. Pop those loose. Probably same thing on the back side. Wiggle this thing up and out. 2 latches on the back, 2 latches on the front, comes up through the top. And that's the engine tag, engine serial number 4452366. and the engine part number B52514T. Next thing I'm going to do is go down there and put that 10 millimeter on that tensioner, break that tensioner loose, and take slack out the belt, pull the belt off. Then I'll remove the tensioner roller and the idler roller, and then we're going to take the water pump off as well, because we're replacing that too. I got the tensioner out. I had to put a little cheater on the 10 millimeter. Then we had to lower the engine to sneak it out the bottom. So now we can verify the timing on the crank, which is dead on. See this hump right here? That hump corresponds with the notch and the groove in there, and then your oil pump right there. So we are dead on. See the two notches on the crank sprocket. So from here you can see that that notch here lines up with the oil pump. Now we should have enough slack in the belt. Get the belt off.
Flip them up here?
Yep. And twist it and lower it out of there. Take off your charge pipe over the engine pipe. Take that off. Take the pipe off, feeds into the air box here. And then we're going to drain the coolant. There's a drain cock down here on the passenger side. And then after that, we're going to take this mount loose, jack the engine up so we can get this air box out. The clamp on the OTE pipe, OTE is over the engine pipe, is a 7 millimeter or flat tip screwdriver. Same thing over here. So that has been removed and the rag's stuffed in there. What I'm going to do now is disconnect these hoses here. You hold the release, pull that out, pull this off, pull this out, pull that out there, move this out of the way. You don't want to damage that octopus hose. Next, I unplug this mass airflow sensor, and then I'm going to take all this cables loose from this top of the engine, all of these coil packs and ground wires and all of that stuff. Then you got a wire that dips down over the head that goes to the turbo control valve. You can unplug it through the passenger side wheel. You'll see that cable going down there. I'll show you that in a second. And I'm coming through here. If you look right over the CV axle, you'll see that wire harness plug for the turbo control valve. You got to take that loose because that wire harness goes up to the top of the head. Then I'm going to jack the engine up a little bit so I can get this air box out. Unplugged the mass airflow sensor. Took the wire harness loose from the air box. Pull this cover from the air box up on the driver's side. Take these two plugs loose that's hooked into your computer. You press the release and then unlatch the red thing and unlatch the plugs and unplug it from the computer. Get the one down the bottom as well. Alright, you got a wire harness screwed in here with a torque. It looks like a T25. It's not, it's a T30. Pull that out so you can get this air box to start moving. Now I'm going to try to shift this air box, pull it out of the studs, pull it toward me, shift it out to the driver's side and lift it out. I got the engine cranked up about 1 inch. Pulled these 8 millimeter bolts out of the intake plenum. So we got that loose with this adapter, 8 millimeter, to get those 6 screws on the bottom of that. I'm going to pull that loose from that valve right there and move this thing out of the way. Well, this electrical connector was a pain in the butt the last time, I think. Let me pull this vacuum hose off this corner here. And check, see if I can get this electrical connector loose and get this out of the way. Pull the screw out the top of that fuel line connector. Reach my hand under, unclip the fuel line.
set it over there, then took the bolts loose from the intake manifold. You loose 3 on the bottom, remove 3 on top. Got that out of the way. Next, I'm going to remove that bolt right there. That bolt goes through the inner cover and goes into the cylinder head. I could pull the cam cover off now, so I think I'm going to go ahead and do that and take this off when I get the engine out. I'm going to pull this sensor out, that sensor out, and pull these bolts out of this cam cover, pull this cam cover off. Next, I got to take that coolant line off, because until that's off, you can't lift the head up out of the way. So I went back there and pulled the exhaust manifold bolts, pulled the cam cover, lifted it off, and now I'm getting ready to break the head bolts loose and lift it out, pull this bracket off, and we'll be ready to start cleaning this up and put the replacement one on. So there we go. We got the cylinder head off. Guess it took me 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours max. So we're going to get ready to put this thing back together. Cylinder head off, the gasket off. Want to make sure this is cleaned up. Set the gasket on. Get the cylinder heads side by side, compare them, and then put the exhaust studs in the new cylinder head. Set that thing in place, get ready, bolt it down. But it looks like I need to set this timing. The timing's off. That piston is top center. Need to roll it back or somewhere to put on its mark. That's the hole that oil was squirting out of the head they sent us. And see, the Volvo head didn't have that hole there. So we got 2 big bolt holes here. That one only has 1 big bolt hole. And this one has another bolt hole down there that this one doesn't have. So you got a bracket bolt there for the, what do you call that? That's wire harness. Wire harness bolt there, and a big plate bracket there, plate bracket there. Well, this has got, and you got a coolant pipe hole here. See, it drops down in the head. That has that coolant hole too. But I don't know what that little head there is. You got a number there that you don't have on the Volvo heads. So let me go ahead, and it don't look like they got these cams set, but let me go ahead and get ready to get this head installed. We're going to start out by getting these end caps off of these cams so we can put the locking tools on there. That is the exhaust cam. Got the screw out of that. And that's the intake cam. This one has an E in the part number. That one has an I in the part number. I before H. Intake. Head gasket in place. About to check the bottom of the head and set the head in place. Put this coolant pipe on here. This coolant pipe wraps around like this. It's much easier to put this on outside of the car. Then you got 3 look like 14mm bolts here that go into the side of this bracket, and then you got this big bolt here, and this looks like maybe a 14 there, a 10 there. Hold this tube in here. I'm gonna bolt this on, and then I'm gonna set the head in there. Looks like I'm gonna have to lift the exhaust. I already have the exhaust manifold gasket on there. Tighten these on here, which support the engine mount. Keep cracking. We got this gasket set in place. We got the rings holding it in position. I put a socket down there to hold this exhaust manifold up. Hopefully it's high enough to get the studs through the manifold. So I'm gonna go ahead and set the head in place and prepare to torque this thing down. When I was pushing the head back, it lifted the exhaust manifold up, and the exhaust manifold fell over the bolts. So we're good to go. Then I pushed the head down on the guide pins, and you can see the front says I think this says up front. Torque sequence is a little different on this head gasket. So I follow the torque sequence, and then you do the torque specs there. We have gone through the first round, 20 Newton meters. Now we're about to hit 60 Newton meters. We got the head all torqued down, getting ready to clean off the head surface, and wanted to set the cams and the cam cup to see how that fit. I'm going to clean this up, check the cams in here, set this stuff in place, and get this installed. Another thing I noticed is that the cam seal, when I set that in the head, it sits like flush against the head. So these cam seals don't go in far. They sit right against the head surface. Got the same thing there. That cam seal sits right on the edge of that head. I'm gonna go ahead, acetone off the head, acetone off the cover, and then wipe these cams off and put the stuff together. This thing already has assembly lube in here. Any dirt I find in here from this thing sitting over the weeks, I'm gonna wipe out. I'm gonna try to leave all the assembly lube in I can. Then we're gonna put this cam cover on and keep moving forward. Got the seals on because I did not remove the hubs. Started off securing the exhaust manifold. Got all those bolts on. Cleaned off the head surface. Got all the assembly lube off of the mating surfaces. Then I dropped the cams in. Got the cam locking tool on there. Now I cleaned off the cam cover. Put the anaerobic sealant on it. Now I'm going to set it on top of here and draw it down with the cam cover drawdown tool I got from Andrew. So you want to make sure the crank is on before you put the cam cover on. That way the pistons is clear of the valves. So when you put this cam cover on, you're good to go. Double check the crank mark is still on. See that tip right there? This right here lines up with the crank mark in there. That's still on. I could draw down that cam cover and not make any valve contact. I'm gonna go ahead and gotta drop my screws in now, draw this cover down. I don't think none of this stuff needs to be in. I could put all that in after the cover's installed. A couple things in installing this cam cover. Number one, you should use anaerobic sealant. Anaerobic sealant dries once it is suffocated. Before you get the job done, it'll be dry. You can start the car right up. Don't worry about it drying. If you don't install the cover, that stuff will not dry until you do. So there's no rush in getting that cover installed. Number two, you can draw the cover down with the proper tools, or you could draw them down with the screws. I've done it both ways a dozen times. If you draw it down with the screws, you need to get all the screws started and turn the screws down until they contact the cam cover. Make a pass. Do the same thing, make another pass. You'll notice each time you make a pass, you'll see that the screws have room under the heads of the bolts again. Now, you start at the middle, you stagger, work your way out to the end. You'll end up making about 4 or 5 passes if you do that. Do not use any kind of speed tool. Do that by hand if you don't have those drawdown tools, because if you use a speed tool, you'll end up stripping the bolt holes in the head. Then you'll be looking for some time certs or a helicoil. Not fun. You don't want to create leaks in that situation. You don't want to be replacing the head because you've done so much damage. So if you draw it down with the screws, make several passes, take your time, do it by hand. We have the cam cover torqued down, dropping in the Volvo plugs. These plugs have longer thread pitch on them, so I'm gonna check the gap, toss them in there. Found the oil cap that goes in there. I lubricated the seal, cleaned the cap off as best I could, And these are the 2 screws that came in there. I had that in a Ziploc bag together. The intake manifolds here, I cleaned that off. That little brass piece there fits inside there. Then of course the PCV tube here goes over that deal there. This here plugs into there. Got the intake manifold gasket in place. Got those little slits there, but I'm not sure. You got that port there, that port there. I gotta work that down. I re-crimped that PCV hose on there. So let me set that in place, get the rest of these bolts started, and then work on getting this plenum on top of the intake manifold. I might have to move this out of the way just to get that intake manifold on there. Then I got the fuel line there to work on, the fuel rail. I have the intake manifold bolts tight. All of them have a washer on them. And I secured that fuel line there. Now I'm going to put the fuel rail in place. And then I'm going to put these in the bottom of this intake plenum. And then I'm going to put this intake plenum in place. So let me lower this fuel rail over here and get this secure. Find the tiny screw that goes into that. I had to massage the fuel line in the fuel rail. I put my hand under it and used the screwdriver while I was wiggling the line before I had the fuel rail tightened down. And I pushed in until it went, I believe, all the way in. Now I got to put this clip on it. Slide this down over there till it locks in place. Then tighten that T15. That should be good to go. I used my Milwaukee with this adapter, 8mm, to get those 6 screws on the bottom of that and the one in the corner of the fuel line bracket. Now I'm going to secure the fuel line in the fuel rail. I put the cam sensors in. I put those in with a T30. Not sure if they came out with the T30. I put the rear cam sensors in. They had the 8mm in them. I had to actually tap these down with a hammer, which is disturbing. The paint on the cylinder head makes those holes a little tighter, so couldn't get them in by pushing them in by hand. Now I got the coil screws, about to screw the coils down. Then I'm going to have to scrape the paint off of the head to get the grounds for the coil wires. Because with these paint on here, they're not going to ground right. I don't think. Well, maybe the ground will ground down through the threads of the screws. Let's try that. These small screws go in the ground on the coil pack wire harness. 2 screws like this hold this wiring harness against the side of the head. This hose that comes out of the plenum runs behind that PCV hose, so I had to pull that back off and route that under there. Then it runs over here. It clips in this intake manifold there and runs on over there. I got that stuff hooked up in there. I got that clip on there. I put that big 14 in there. I think we're ready to drop in the air box system. Then hook up the computer over here and also hook up this little vacuum octopus thing here. Then we can drop the timing belt on, roll this engine over by hand, fire this puppy up. Now I'm going to put the timing belt and stuff on. I put the inner cover bolt in, that 10mm right there. I use this box and wrench to get that on. We put this air box chamber in, and the best way to do that is to jack up the front of the oil pan. Chinese jigsaw puzzle falls right in place. So let me go ahead and pin that in the holes, put the filter in there, put the turbocharged pipe in there, connect the electrical wires. There's a screw that holds a wire bundle or something on the front of there too. Let me get all that stuff in. So I got the cams locked in the back, and when I come up here and look at my timing marks, let me put a light on this. The exhaust is about 12 o'clock. But this intake, that timing mark is all the way over near 2 o'clock. So this thing needs a new mark put on there So somebody took this sprocket off, put it back on, didn't put it on right. So I'm gonna put a fresh mark on there. They got a mark down here and a mark up here, and neither one of them are even close to where this thing should have been. Not sure you can get this idler out without pulling this bracket here. So we're gonna roll the engine back up on that scissor jack so we can have easy access to this idler pulley, and then have clear access to hit the water pump bolts. Yeah. Water pump came out the bottom. Just about the whole entire gasket came out. I got a new gasket thanks to Corley's Volvo 30677767. Brand new. Got the water pump off. Got the surface all cleaned up with this brass wire brush. That's right there. And we're going to set the new gasket in place, set the water pump in place, and start torquing those bolts down. 15 foot-pounds. All right, you had to crank the engine up, put a few bolts in, lower the engine, put a few bolts in, crank it back up, torque them, lower them, torque them. So now we're going to put on this idler, and then put the timing belt tensioner in place and try to get this timing belt down through there. Roll the crank around, it's on the mark. Then that tensioner, almost impossible to see, but I think it's set for like 70 degrees or something. Yeah, it's set for like 60 degrees. That's as close as I can get it. I got that tight. I'm gonna check the two cam marks and that'll be ready to go back together. When you put the alternator belt on, put it around the AC pulley first, then pull it around your pulley, then untension your pulley and slip it over the alternator and roll it while you're putting it on. I was trying to put it around this roller last, and I had tension on the tensioner, and the tensioner actually broke. The tensioner. So then I took the cap off of the roller and that T50 in there. I carefully took the belt off the alternator, put it around the AC compressor around the roller, and then I carefully took the tension off using that roller screw, and I was able to get it around the alternator that way. So I pried that cap off with a flat tip screwdriver, and I'm about to put that cap back on. So be aware you can break these tensioners. Fill it up with coolant, make sure everything works. I put that inner cover on. So now I'm gonna put the harmonic balancer on and just keep going forward. I believe I got all my water pump bolts torqued right. Got the harmonic balancer back on, alternator tail on. We'll put all the coolant that we had in there, and everything's clear of the belt. We're gonna go ahead and fire it up and see how she sounds. I have the timing belt on and the tensioner set, which is near impossible to see on this car with this bracket on here, but you can feel it. Put your hand down there, feel the top of it, feel the gap of it. So the belt's on. I pulled the locking tool off the back. You can see the intake cam is parallel, exhaust cam is parallel with the head. So now I'm gonna roll the engine over and double check the timing, but I need to actually put a mark on here so that this thing has a up. This back here has a little mark there, but this one here needs a mark. And this cam, these cams are like a half a tooth off almost, so I had to roll the crank forward a half a tooth to get this stuff on here. So let me go ahead and put a mark on there, right there, and go from there. Let me look at the cover. I put the sensor pickup, both sides, T30s. I got fresh screws in there. Now it's time to lay this harness over here, plug in everything in the harness and the turbo control valve down there by the axle. This head, these are 8mm head screws. As you can see, there's 3 different lengths. There's 2 of these tiny ones, Those are for the ground wires on your wire loom that goes across with your coil packs. The medium ones go in this plenum, and then these two sensors. The long ones go in the coil packs. We have two Gates serpentine belts to replace the belts that got broken. One of them here, as you can see, is 905 millimeter. That's the one for the alternator. This 864 belt, the shorter one, is for the crank and compressor. So put this one on first, then put that one on. A T50 takes those tensions loose. Just plug the fuel injectors in, and this whatever this is on the end of this plenum. Oh man, I need to get this coolant line in here. Should have done that before I put this harness down, and a few other things. So let me see what's going on over here. Plug this coolant line in, put this bracket on, and see what else is going on over here. Squoze those two tabs on the sides of that, and it did release that water pipe, or that water connection under there. That little water pipe thing is a 15. So I screwed it in, got it nice and tight. Now I'm gonna slide the hose on it, snap it in place. Then I'm gonna secure these wire harness. You should put that on before the wire harness. I got this bracket in. The top bolts are 14. The bottom bolts are 16. And it has a hole in it that you can screw something else in. This clips on there. However, it's broken. So this PCV thing hooks over this rubber thing, hooks over this bracket there. You got your wires, probably supposed to have a little push pin there. I got the wire harness screwed in, 2/8 millimeters. I jacked the engine up, slid the air box in. I got a push in zip tie there. I got a T30 there. I hooked up the computers, slid the cover over them. My next thing to do is to put on my octopus deal here. It presses on there. It clips on somewhere here. It clips in there. It clips in there. I need to find out where this clips in. That's not obvious right now for some reason. The mystery tube connector connected right there. So I got the air pipe in place. I got the octopus hose all connected up. I put the engine mount on. These are 15 millimeters. Now I'm gonna lower the engine down on there and put the top of the mount on. Hook up this air pipe. Hook up the battery. Start the car. After I put some coolant in there.
All the way?
We're gonna go ahead. Yeah, just go ahead and push the start button. Hey, shut it off! Shut it off! See all that smoke?
Yeah.
AC.
AC compressor, right?
Yes.
It's the belt, right?
I don't know. The AC compressor started throwing sparks and everything. So let me pop that loose, then we can start it again. She started it.
Nothing's okay. Oh, wait.
Gonna let it idle a little bit. Coolant level's good. Everything sounds good. The belts are good. Let me see if there's any red lights in there. No warning lights in there?
No, this is park bait.
Okay.
Don't touch anything.
Alright, you can come out now. You're all done. Plug that bottom section into the air box. Plug this into the top. You got a screw there. You got a screw there. Now your air duct system is straight. Now we're going to put the heat shield on. Put this cover on. And set this front cover on. Turbo heat shield. you got to manhandle that thing. You got a screw there and 3 screws along the top. So, do have to get it under that water line. Had to take that OTE pipe loose to get at it. So now, I'm going to hook this over the engine pipe back up, put the belly pan on, put the skirt back on. Now to put this front cover on, then get that top cover locked in place. I put the big skirt in. I hooked it around the fender first. Then I puckered it up there, put it over those anchors, put those 2 tins in, and then I come around here with the T25s. Then I put this bottom piece on here. Looks like it's on right. Some kind of way like that. Now it's time to get that belly pan on, put the tire on, because we kind of worked this in behind that mount, got it hooked behind right there where it goes. Then we put the top cover on under that, clipped it under there, put the oil cap back on, put the T30s in there, and we're good to go. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.